Want to get nuts? Let's get nuts, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Millionth show. My name is James, joined once again by Henry, and we are back. We're really back because today we're going to talk about The Flash, and we're revisiting our Batman series, which we concluded way back last year with The Batman, and since then we've done a couple of other franchises which we're still working through, but that's all on pause now because last night The Flash premiered, and you and I both saw it, didn't we, Henry?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure if this held up to my expectation of saying this doesn't really look like a Flash film. This looks like a Batman film they've been trying to market,
Yeah,
because
for
you
one
know,
reason or another.
I think for the most part, everyone knows there is more than one Batman involved in this. Um,
Yes.
some might
What we
say.
should preface straight away is that the first 15 or so minutes of this podcast will be spoiler free. We're going to basically talk about how we felt, our reactions, and then we're just going to go and dissect the film. It's how we usually record this show, but if you're a first time listener, then don't worry. When spoilers are happening, we will call them out. But the first 10, 15 minutes, we will just assess kind of our general reactions to it. Now, for me, I tried to go in with as open mind as possible. I tried to avoid. I didn't watch any trailers as usual. I didn't. I kept myself as free of information as possible. And I must say, I quite enjoyed it. It was a very entertaining movie. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I will watch it again. Put it that way. It's not like a film like, oh, I hated it. I'm never going to watch it. I was actually like, you know what? I didn't have I didn't have much expectation going into this,
Yeah.
but it gave me a lot of laughs. It had some very unexpected moments in it, and it
Yeah.
had loads. It had bucketfuls of fan service, which was just great for someone like me who's like obsessed with the Batman '89 movie, or Tim Burton's Batman in general.
Yeah.
It had so much fan service for people like me. It had as well for Zack Snyder fans. I would say there was plenty of references, for example, to Man of Steel, which I bet you're glad you watched it now because
Yeah. Of course, always well.
context. Yeah,
Yeah, this film obviously has. It's probably like the one of the most, I don't know, not egregious, but like kind of most obvious examples of like being a crowd pleaser sort of film like possible. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because I remember
yeah,
I watched this like kind of a lot of people have been comparing this to Marvel's kind of similar version to this
right.
where it's in
And
Spider-Man No Way Home
yeah,
where it's
correct
just
me if
like
I'm wrong because I haven't seen any Marvel films since Thor 2, so 10 years going now. And actually, by the way, on that note, when I was in the cinema waiting for the Flash to start, I saw a couple of trailers, obviously. One of which was for whatever the latest Marvel film is, and it looks trash. And
was
I'm
it
sat thinking,
what was it called
yeah,
again?
I can't remember which. They all. It's all like, I don't know. Anyway, I just sat through this trailer and I thought, yeah, I haven't regretted that decision not to come back to
Yeah,
Marvel.
this is the
But I
thing.
believe you did see one of the multiverse films, didn't you?
Yeah, that was it. It was Spider-Man No Way Home where you have the three Spider-Men.
Okay.
I went solely just to watch Tobey Maguire because it was, funny.
Yeah.
And also you get to see Willem Dafoe, so
Oh yeah.
why not? I mean, having seen that first before watching the first Spider-Man, bit questionable, but still, I would honestly say, I mean, obviously would have a bit of a bias for this because I would say I prefer DC over Marvel films. That I enjoyed The Flash more. It's something I would
Okay.
consider watching again.
Would you
Um,
say the Flash did the whole multiverse thing better than Marvel did? I mean, from your knowledge, because obviously multiverse now is quite a big thing, and obviously pioneered more or less by Marvel.
yeah,
But also, you get it with other sort of. It's beginning to pop up here and there.
yeah.
Now
I
DC's
think
doing.
my honest opinion about this, I think for a film that involves time travel, I think they made some bold choices with it. Like they actually did some things that are quite original that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
They made some calls and choices in the plot which I could actually respect because it wasn't like safe, kind of like, oh,
Mm.
I mean, I'm not going to say what happens yet, obviously,
Yes.
but it's they do make some bold steps in some ways. I mean, something, and this film genuinely does it explains. I mean, obviously every film that involves time travel and multiverses has like that scene where they explain stuff. In this
Yeah,
one,
you need a bit of exposition,
it's as
right?
simple as you can get, really.
Yeah,
They don't beat you over the
I
head
didn't
with
feel
it.
like beaten over the head by exposition in the Flash. To be fair, it was it was enough. So I mean, obviously those kind of concepts are just generally. I mean, you have to dumb it down a little bit for like just the general moviegoer. But overall, I think I was able to. This being the first ever film I've seen that addresses a multiverse, tries to explain it. I got it straight away, and so that's a good thing. It's not like it was too. It wasn't trying to be too clever. Like Chris
Yeah,
Nolan can be sometimes, for example. It wasn't like trying to do too much. It kept it fairly simple. I mean, the actual physics of like the Flash. Now, I'm not a huge.
hmm.
Well, I don't really care
Yeah.
about
We didn't
superheroes
go to this
outside
film for the
Batman, to be
Flash.
honest. But in terms of the Flash himself, there's obviously quite a lot of physics around his powers that you know only like a big Flash fan will fully understand everything, like the fabrics and all that kind of stuff. That kind of just I don't know. I wasn't that interested in that side of things, but they did enough just to make sure like everyone was on side with it, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. Yeah, one thing I'll say if we get into some of the actual characters that are known in this,
Yes.
um, Ezra Miller, right? Obviously, the most controversial thing about this film, the fact that they actually
He's
released this
it.
despite his like, GTA 5 profile, in Hawaii and so on.
Yeah, yeah,
And even so, since we recorded the Justice League video when I gave you that quiz about Ezra Miller's crimes, I think there have been more since then.
alleged crimes.
Yeah, sorry, alleged crimes.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, I think the main reason why people wouldn't want to watch this film is because of him. Either for just the crimes
Yeah.
or also if they don't like him. I will say, when I watched Justice League, I really couldn't stand him. But in this, surprisingly, he did everything that I could ask him to do, and that's just to not be a massive pain in the ass, like the entire film. Um, and I mean, there's something that I can't spoil yet, but he gets to reconcile with how annoying he is actually in quite an
Yeah.
interesting way,
Yeah, that's true.
which it's funny because he gets to be annoying, but at the same time, he gets away with it because it's being self-aware about it, which I could appreciate at least because he comes to sort of realization, has a character arc and so on, which is kind of good. I mean, I assume if you are a fan of the Flash as a character, you'll probably quite like this, and as well for all the
Yes.
sort of outlandish plot this film has. I mean, similar to No Way Home again, where you have Doctor Strange, controlling the universe, or whatever, and changing like all this stuff which goes wrong. This film has that kind of plot at the same time it's anchored around sort of like a family sort of oriented plot as well, which is
Yeah, I
you
mean
can
it is,
people can
but
get behind, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty safe sort of film, I think. I mean, this would definitely be one you could go on a date to watch, or like it just as a fan, in general. I mean, I think, yeah. Just a few specifics about this movie as well. Obviously, it premiered yesterday, which was the 16th of June. Directed by a chap called Andy Mus- Mus- Muschietti. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
And
no.
this guy, actually, I hadn't heard of him, so I looked him up. And this is his first non-horror film that he's directed. This guy's just done a handful of horror films, and that's it.
Yeah, well, you get a bit of a horror ending this and all, but still.
Well, yeah, he did. He did. I think it was well directed. Obviously, this is supposed to be still in the spirit of Zack Snyder. So obviously, there's going to be a lot of, sorry to say it, but butthurt Snyder fans that will resentfully watch this and try and criticize it as
Oh
much as
yeah.
possible. Now, I think if you are, like I said before, if you are a Zack Snyder fan, this film won't disappoint you. I'm
Hmm.
not. I wouldn't consider myself a Zack Snyder fan, nor would I consider myself a hater. I'm probably like, even though he does divide opinion, I'm pretty on the fence. I respect him. I like what he does, and I think that the Flash keeps true to the sort of things that Zack Snyder established. It's not as dark as like a Snyder film. It does lack that like real
Hmm.
darkness that Snyder's able to
Hmm.
always inject into his movies. But I think overall, I think it still keeps faithful to the Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, that kind of trilogy. It
Yeah, in a
keeps
way.
certainly a lot more faithful to that than, for example, Suicide Squad. I mean,
Yeah, 100%
yeah,
easily.
I do want to shout out the fact the music was done by a guy called Benjamin Wallfish, who also did the soundtrack for Blade Runner 2049.
Well, that's
By the time,
quite something.
which is very like, that's
Interesting.
a fantastic soundtrack, obviously. So one of the best, I would say.
Yeah, so we got our obligatory Blade Runner reference so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would genuinely say if you're a Zack Snyder fan, you'll probably enjoy this film. If you're a Batman fan, you'll probably enjoy this film as well.
You'll definitely. I can confirm that because I'm a massive Batman fan, especially cinematic Batman, and I was very pleased with what I
Mm.
saw in terms of Batman. In some ways, now, I mean, we're still not going into spoilers, but I do want to talk about because the thing about Zack Snyder is the fact that, or the Snyderverse, we can call it, because this does fit in the Snyderverse. The main thing is that they managed to retain all the key actors, the key cast. So you have, as everyone knows, Ezra Miller's in this, Ben Affleck's in this. Um, I don't really think it's a spoiler to say Jeremy Irons is in this as Alfred.
Yeah,
That
it's
was
very, very nice to see.
I didn't
Yeah,
actually know that watching it, but he's in it in the first 30 seconds basically. So I was like, oh, that's nice. That's great. So they kept like the main core guys there, so that's important for continuity. But other than that, yeah, I mean, so you've got that aspect, which I think is pleasing, as well as, like you said, more than one Batman
yeah, of course.
appears. So
Me,
that's
yeah, I
also
think the
exciting. And
yeah,
actually, as well, sorry, but just a ton of references, not just to previous superhero films or DC films, but also
just
just
all other films.
yeah, you had like I counted at least 3 Terminator references. You've obviously got Back to the
Back to the
Future
Future.
referenced a lot, Shawshank Redemption. So that was also
Yeah,
pleasing.
and Lord of the
So like
Rings or
it's
something.
not Kino, I wouldn't go that far, but it's still like it will tickle your like cinematic G spot if you have one. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. Was there a No, no, it wasn't. Yeah, one thing I will also have to say is if you think you will know what happens in this film, like in terms of references and things that pop up, trust me, you probably don't. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. I think
when
you're definitely in for some
there's that
surprises.
you will get a
Yeah.
surprise no matter what at some point. And when we get into spoilers, if someone hasn't seen this film before and they're gonna watch the later part anyway, I think you might think that I'm just like lying about some parts. I'm not. Like there's like the craziest things I've never thought I would see
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
this
Like I did
ever.
not see that coming. Like, yeah, there's some really, really good like they're not plot twists. I don't want to say there are any plot twists, but just the
Whiplash
references
moments.
and some people who pop up are just like wow. Like I did not, and it doesn't. Some of it is actually quite subtle. You could actually quite easily miss it, but if you're a fan and if you are looking out for these things, there's just tons of Easter eggs in this movie. I think I got most of them.
Hmm.
Obviously, probably when I
This might,
rewatch it, I'll
yeah,
see more. But yeah, man, it was very satisfying as a
yeah.
fan, I must
I
say.
think the two reasons why people might not like this the most, well, number one, obviously, if you don't want to watch this primarily because of Ezra Miller's, track record of,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, several different alleged crimes, and the other is that the visual effects in this are kind of all over the place. Sometimes it's really good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like a PS2 cutscene, like
Yeah, 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 I agree. Some of the CG was a bit off, and I think
just
that
look
is already becoming a common criticism of this film. There was some CG which is a bit like, oh, okay.
horrendous. I mean, I
But a
normally
lot of
don't
it was
care. Like
actually good
we
as well,
liked we
So
didn't even care about the bad CG in like Die Another Day, but like I mean, then again, this is 20 years later. It doesn't really have.
yeah, and this had a very healthy budget. This, according to IMDb, 20 million. No, or two, no, 200 must have
Yeah,
been
it has to
200
be. I
million.
think it
Yeah,
was
200.
yeah,
My bad.
quite an expensive
Yeah,
film to make.
200 million. So that's a healthy budget. It's going to be interesting to see how it does in the box office. You and me have
I
contributed.
think it
So
will probably bomb. To be honest, most people think that,
you
but
think? Well, we'll
yeah,
see.
it probably will. But just because of Ezra Miller, because all that stuff hasn't blown over. I mean, I don't know why it would, and like his name is just synonymous with like everything that's happened.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway,
Oh,
I
and
think
yeah, we will just get into the plot in just a moment. But I did want to mention one other thing: the fact that or maybe it's just escaped me. I'll come back to it. But I do have a couple of bits of trivia here that's spoiler free, so I will throw these
yeah,
in. Oh, I should add, yes, that obviously following our in depth analysis of the film, we will rank this the Batman elements of this film up against the previous ones. So
Yeah.
89 Batman, all the Batmans, we've already ranked them all in our previous episodes, which you're welcome to go and check out on our channel or on Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching. So we've gone through and assessed all the Jokers, all the Alfreds, all the Cush Gordons, all the Batmobiles. We've ranked everything basically. So feel free to go back and watch some of them because we will be coming back to them at the end of this episode.
Yeah, a
But
lot of which I've forgotten, so it'll be a
yes,
revelation for me too.
it's going to be fun revising some of these. But these couple of bits of trivia I just wanted to mention. So with his appearance in this film, Ben Affleck has played the role of Batman 4 times in live-action films, which is more than any other actor, even though he's never had a standalone Batman film, and he's the only one not to.
Yeah.
Really interesting bit of trivia, I think, there. He's played Batman in 4 different movies, but none of them have been his own movie.
Yeah,
and this is obviously his swan song. This is his last one as well, isn't it? For sure. So
yeah.
and then this is just one sort of. So who's considered to direct this film was James Wan, and you remember what he directed, right?
It escapes
Saw.
me. I remember his name. Saw.
Yeah, he directed Saw, and he basically had a choice. He could either direct Aquaman or The Flash, and he went with Aquaman because he saw it as an opportunity to do something original and unique in the superhero genre. So we could have had a. Well, they went with another horror director anyway, so
Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason, that's the way DC wants to go these days. So why not?
Yeah, fair enough, I suppose.
So yeah, all right. Well then, I think we're going to start talking about the film now. So spoilers will be coming. So be on the lookout for them.
For those, however, who are just finishing this and are questioning whether they should see the film or not, would you consider this having the millionth seal of approval for Batman fans?
I would absolutely, yes, 100%. Go and watch this film. I will. I'm tempted to actually go and watch it a second time in the cinema, which is not something I do often. Or I might wait until it comes out elsewhere. But yeah, this is definitely one I come back to. So I think that's the highest praise.
Yeah,
I
some
can give it.
pretty high praise. Yeah, especially considering, for me personally, the only Zack Snyder film I would probably rewatch is possibly Man of Steel at some point, maybe. This, I would consider rewatching over that even.
Okay. Well, we're going to rank it, The Flash, obviously, up against the other films Batman has appeared in, including Batman vs Superman, for example. So that's going to be interesting. So yeah, let's get into it then. Okay, we've just had our 1966 transition thing, so that's fun to actually have that in actually work with the franchise we're reviewing.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that happens is
I like
Barry Allen checks into his local, cafe that's definitely not
Starbucks or whatever. I love, you know what I loved as well? At the very beginning, like the Warner Bros. Intro just goes straight into the film. There's not like.
Yeah. That was nice. I did because I was making notes as I was watching in the cinema. So even though I was watching this on the Friday night of the premiere, and bear in mind I am watching it in Serbia, so it's not like But anyway, there were 8 people in the cinema.
Same for me. My cinema was empty, man, more or less.
Oh, was it the same for you?
Yeah.
Oh wow! Because I remember you saying that when you wanted to watch it, originally it was booked up, so you saw it an earlier viewing, right?
Yeah. So that might be why. So, but still.
Yeah, there's a thing. I watched it at the latest viewing, so it was showing at I think 4:30, 7, and about 9:30. I watched the 9:30 one. There was basically no one there, which I wasn't complaining about because I just hate people that don't really have cinema etiquette. So yeah. But anyway, and I did have a glimpse of the Barbie trailer as well, which was.
Oh, of course, yeah. There's even like some sort of Barbie booth at my local cinema, so that'll be interesting.
So that's gonna be fun. Anyway, so like I said, Flash rocks up at his favorite local cafe. He's late for work, obviously, fastest man alive. Has punctuality issues. Alfred calls him up. So yeah, we have Jeremy Irons straight away. So that was nice to see. And he's like, "Yeah, I've got a mission for you." And it's like, "Oh, you're my first choice." And it's like, "What about Superman?" And then obviously the funny thing is because
they have to work around Henry Cavill
straight away. Yeah, they addressed this straight away, which is good. The fact that, like, obviously Henry Cavill's been booted out of the DCU.
Yeah, sorry, Snyder fans.
Yeah, very unceremoniously. Sorry, so I mean, I'm sorry for DC if anything, because Henry Cavill was. I mean, yeah, he wasn't a bad Superman by any. I mean, he did well with what he was given. So anyway, it was just funny how they addressed it. So like,
Mm,
they just had the back, like his back to the camera, basically on some like TV footage,
yeah,
and
he's
then
like solving some volcano off somewhere.
yeah, and then later on you see as well when he actually gets into it. So this is semi spoiler. You get into the actual multiverse happening, whatever, and you actually see like this really badly CG'd Superman
Yeah,
face that isn't Henry Cavill, but it is, and it's like, oh, it's so fucking funny, man, to see that.
yeah, seriously. But I mean, I kind of find this one thing that they actually, I mean, this reminds me of like A Train from The Boys as well. I mean, it's something that they, address with
Yeah,
basically
I got the boys vibes from this film a little bit. I don't know.
with every character who's like, a speed demon. The Flash obviously has to like eat like extremely high calorie stuff in order to maintain all the energy that he uses to run.
Yeah,
He even has like a little watch that tells him all this. And he needs a sandwich done quick, but his regular, the person who knows his regular isn't here. So, and obviously Barry Allen in this, the character that Ezra Miller plays, this might as well just be a documentary of his life. Because every time he's being weird, I just kind of forget that
he's
he's
playing
playing the
himself, eh?
character. Yeah, he literally is. And
No, I don't get that vibe from him. No, because Barry Allen's quite an innocent guy.
oh yeah.
So anyway, but
There's just so many like
let's
things that he
let's
says,
let
which is
sleeping
like,
dogs lie on that one.
yeah,
And yeah, and so like obviously Jeremy Irons is going through the list of like superheroes that were his first choice but weren't
yeah. It's
available,
like,
and it's like, yeah, so can you help basically?
yeah.
Uh, and then yeah, and then he's like mucking about in the cafe, and he's like some fangirls come and like throw a candy bar at him, and it like hits him on the head. That's quite funny. The
Oh
comedy in this
yeah.
film. I'm a big stickler for when, and I will always call out when a joke goes wrong or doesn't hit for me. But in this film, there's a lot of comedy in it, and actually, I think it hits pretty much every time.
Yeah,
You-
that was very surprising. This film actually was
yeah,
quite funny.
yeah, because I've been like totally traumatized by, well, not just the Flash in former films. I mean, even he wasn't that bad, but like I say, I think this is definitely a better Flash than what we saw in Zack Snyder's Justice League. But obviously, and I think we glimpsed him in Batman vs Superman, the extended cut.
Oh
But
yeah,
also,
yeah. Him in the supermarket for like
actually, he
two
was even
seconds.
in Suicide Squad briefly, wasn't he? Because of the boomerang.
Oh yeah, of course.
But anyway, that brings me, yeah, like I was saying, the Suicide Squad that had a lot of humor that none of it worked basically. So anyway, it's good that we had this moment here. Well, lots of moments. Anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
um, then we cut to Batman. Ben Affleck, he's there. He's wearing a like a dark blue cowl and cape with like the grey suit, which was so cool, man. Like, what a great decision there.
Of
We're going to
course.
rank that against other bat suits that we've
Mhm.
previously ranked.
Yeah, not the last bat suit in here as well.
No,
I
but
mean,
I like this one. I know about you,
yeah.
but that straight away got me on side.
One of the funny things is, I mean, also you get to see, that thing that we said in Zack Snyder's Justice League, that giant kind of like plane thing he has. We were like, oh, it's just a shame you only see it for like 5 seconds. You get to see it
Yeah,
again in here,
yeah, that's true.
and his like
And
bat
yeah,
bike drops off.
yeah, the bat cycle, and it's like because Ben Affleck hasn't had one yet, and we always see a bat cycle, and it didn't really occur to me. We could, in theory, rank these. We're not going to, but we've had a bat cycle in the 1966 Batman movie. I don't think Michael Keaton had one, or any of
Oh
the.
yeah, it is when his Batmobile turns to that like
Oh yeah, you're right. There
stupid
was one
like,
actually, and then obviously you've probably got the best one, which is the Bat Pod in the Dark Knight trilogy.
yeah, but you can't
That
call
was
it a
cool.
bat cycle.
That was sick.
Yeah,
And then yeah, you've got obviously which is for some reason or pretty much the main vehicle in the Batman. You've got his Bat bike, which is also cool, but it doesn't really
yeah,
use it that.
yeah, yeah.
This
As well,
Batcycle, on the other hand, is laden with gadgets.
yeah.
It's like,
Something I found quite funny is it even has turn indicators that's road legal. So minus the guns and everything on it.
oh, I loved it, and it's so cool. It's almost like a Tron bike, because the front wheel was actually two
Yeah,
separate thinner wheels that like swerve, and it's so cool, man. It's got a big fat wheel at the back. It's got it's got so many gadgets. There's that one, my favorite one, which is like lays out road spikes.
Yeah.
That was so cool, man. And you get the POV shot kind of it, or following it basically. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's great as well because, like, yeah, this doesn't, Ben Affleck's Batman is still Ben Affleck's Batman, man. He's using like lethal force to get these guys,
Oh, yeah.
like he doesn't,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
And you know what though?
civilians.
You know what I was slightly disappointed by.
He's
They
not in
made
it
up.
much.
They made up for it slightly later, but the fact that we didn't get to hear the Batfleck theme song one more time, just the dun 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 dun. I was like begging for them to play that, and they didn't,
Yeah.
man. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. But
Yeah. Also, I think the one thing that I have to say, there's a couple of things I had a problem with in this film. Ben Affleck's Batman is not really in this for that much. When
yeah,
he is
that
in it, though,
was
it is good.
disappointing to me.
So
No, he's good when he's in it, but he doesn't do like, for example, obviously we have. I've just realised I didn't actually go back and find our Sigma rankings, but I can remember the best ones anyway. We can remember most of them, but I was just waiting for like a moment where he goes, I bought the bank, or I'm rich.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for a quote, just give me something, and they didn't. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. That was a little bit of a shame, but anyway, we'll come back to Ben Affleck a little bit. But yeah, anyway, he's on this chase. This also surprised me, the fact that, I mean, this sequence of the Bat Cycle and this armored vehicle like performing a robbery.
Yeah, like the Hummer from like Humvee or whatever from The Rock, Sean Connery drives.
Yeah, kind of. And it was like, I was kind of like, oh, that is so done just for like merchandise for Lego sets and stuff. But there aren't any the Flash Legos right now for some reason. So
Yeah, I wonder why.
well, anyway.
So, you can have Ezra Miller in prison.
This this chase was very cool, I must say, and it's it's just a classic like action opening for a superhero movie. And I was like, yeah, this is good. In the meantime, you've got the Flash. He's at this hospital trying to clean up.
Yeah, his whole thing is of course the aftermath of Ben Affleck's Batman going somewhere, and it's just quite funny how, I mean, the fact that obviously they kind of come to terms with, and Barry Allen does this, that the Flash is kind of their cleanup crew. He has to do all after they've like blown up all the place, he has to actually fix everything afterwards. And he's like, come to accept it. And you get to see what his kind of, average day is in terms of this.
Yeah,
and
how he actually operates. Yeah, you are kind of seeing a day in the life of the Flash.
Yeah,
and what
as
was really
well.
funny for me. What was really good is I just didn't know what to expect from him. So the bit where obviously the hospital's collapsing, the nurse flies out, and all the babies, and it's like, okay, he's looking at all of them to like try and work out what to do, and then he turns and sees the vending machine, and he just goes for that. That was really funny.
That was really funny. I was like, he can't save all these people. What's he going to do? They got a vending machine, man. He just eats all of the snacks,
Yeah.
And
he's
one thing
enjoying it, man. He finds like a hot dog, I think, as well. Like he
does a bit of microwaving somehow. It's quite funny, I feel, as well, that
and then he sets off like the gas can to like, he just sets off this chain reaction to like save each baby without actually touching them. Because he explains, because I was wondering like, why doesn't he just pick them all up? But then he explains later like you can't actually touch other people really.
Otherwise you can't move them like.
Yeah.
And it is kind of amusing as well, the fact that he, for starters, like Jeremy Irons is down on his earpiece being like, my assessments show and which are usually correct, like almost always. He's like sick and tired of seeing Batman like destroy buildings constantly. That this like hospital's falling over, and then like Ezra Miller's like, nah, that sounds just me being hungry, but then obviously it is fault.
Yeah. No, all the only dodgy bit here was like putting a baby in a microwave. That was like, I mean,
but it's not Howard, is it?
That is not a good message to send out to what should be a relatively family-friendly movie, man. Like, what? I just don't want to see. I don't want to see a baby in a microwave in any context. Whether
Ezra Miller with children to start with, give
but in particular, this exact just like that image is just not what you want to see. I think they could have surely done something a bit better with.
I don't know. It is kind of like amusing that when he realizes, like there are several babies in danger here, like they get like increasingly more ridiculous, kind of like the things that are threatening them. Like,
Yeah.
there's like, I don't know. There's also the therapy dog as well, which he has to deal with as well.
Oh
And
yeah,
also
that's
the
right.
nurse.
And he
And
does eventually catch them all and lays them out on a tray, sort of thing. No, it's like no, it's like a stretcher or an
trolley,
iron.
yeah, like kind of like a trolley
Trolley.
sort of thing. Oh yeah, he even does like the like what the nurse is like,
Yeah,
freaking out and so on. He's
yeah.
just like, it's like, oh yeah, voila kind of sort of thing, which is kind of funny.
Yeah,
And
he's like, oh, you should consult this is probably very traumatic. You should consult a mental health specialist because, frankly, the Justice League's still a bit behind on that.
yeah, it's like, do you reckon they wrote that with him in mind, perhaps? Like, yeah,
Well, with
but
any of them, man. Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, man, they've all been shafted, really, haven't they? I mean, for one
yeah,
reason or another. So yeah,
yeah.
but
For some reason, Ezra Miller didn't, but still,
yeah. But anyway, we catch up with Batman. He basically apprehends these guys, and it's like, oh, you can't let the thing
super
drop.
virus thing.
Jeremy Irons is like, oh, you can't let that, vat of chemicals, whatever, like drop into the river, otherwise everyone will be dead by lunchtime, basically. And it's like, oh shit. And then out of nowhere, man, this is a nice surprise. Like,
Yeah.
Wonder Woman shows up, Gal Gadot, and you're like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, she like because they're like about to fall off the bridge or whatever, and
Yeah.
then she used the lasso of truth to pull them up, and yeah, because Ben Affleck's Batman starts like him and the criminal like they're starting to say like
Yeah,
things.
because it's like she's like, oh, you're welcome, and he's like, oh, my ego's too big to say thanks, and I'm like,
What?
why did you say that? Was that just like really bad humor or something? Like, what? Why was that? And then it's like, and then the robber starts saying stuff, and then Batman is like, yeah, well, and then they have this
Yeah, it's like I
really
have to
funny bit
compensate for
because
my
I'm
childhood.
like confused, and it's like, oh yeah, the lasso of truth, and it's like, yeah, I could just. If I really wanted to solve poverty, I could just spend my money on use. It's so really funny,
It
man.
is
It's like,
quite
yeah,
funny, yeah. Like,
it's
and as well,
brilliant.
you have like Barry Allen turns up. He's like,
Yeah,
something like I've never had sex or something like,
yeah.
just like I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, and the criminals saying stuff. And I'm like, oh, what? It's like, yeah, I could be doing more useful things with my time if I really wanted to. That's it's really funny.
Yeah,
Um, and then Wonder Woman disappears. Her cameo's over, and then Barry Allen's like, oh, it was just a metaphor, like it was, yeah.
yeah. Bowser, you're not
That was
real.
all very good. I was like surprised how well they did the humor there. I must say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, superhero films and humor have not really been, something that's been, you know,
yeah, that's for
well
sure.
associated together recently.
So anyway, after this sort of adrenaline rush, we calm down. Barry Allen's at his day job as a forensic criminal
Oh yeah,
analyst,
criminal. Yeah,
which is
another
funny
like
enough, I
funny
believe, the
thing.
same exact job title that Paul Dana's Riddler had.
Yeah,
So
I thought that was quite funny as well. The fact that they, yeah, and when he was talking about like cases and all this, I thought he might have been in a lawyer's office because we've been watching Better Call Saul. So I was like, oh, maybe, which would have been either way. It's quite funny to think that again, Ezra Miller is just like in this situation, which is
yeah,
heavily ironic.
he's got his dad's in jail, and so it's
Yeah,
good
did you,
because like I kind of was like, oh, are they going to address that stuff, and they do directly. Actually, it is basically the plot revolves around it, which is good. We basically get like his whole origin story at this point, which I mean I guess it's interesting if you're a Flash. I mean, I'm like,
yeah,
it's interesting. It's like
it's
whatever.
questionable.
It's certainly better fleshed out than like the 6 origin stories they had to do in Zack Snyder Justice League. So
Yeah, true. I mean, you had yeah, he also bumped into his love interest, who's a journalist, whatever. Um,
Iris West, I
I
think.
think so. But you also get his like, his origin story, his mum, yeah, because this is what the film revolves around. His mum like forgets like some shopping, like a can of tomato soup or tomato soup
Tomato.
for our cousins
Yeah.
over the water. But they yeah, and she forgets this at the shopping when he's a kid, and then his dad goes to get it. And while his dad's out, he must have left the front door open. Someone rushes in and stabs her, and then leaves. Apparently, like maybe the Flash himself did it. But
Yeah.
I think they never really.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
I
a good
wasn't paying
point. Yeah.
attention, but it doesn't really make much sense.
I
But
think it's
anyway,
kind of like a Batman thing, where it's like, the actual assassin of his parents or the murder of his parents
it's
is,
just
is kind
another.
of anonymous, which is, I suppose that's a good thing in a way. I mean, for it just
Yeah,
keeps that
it's
side
not.
ambiguous.
Imagine if it was like Captain Boomerang threw it, it like arcs through
Yeah,
the thing,
yeah,
hits
yeah,
on the
yeah,
head,
yeah.
you know.
I mean, that would
But
have been
like,
too much of a distraction if they started focusing on that. So probably
yeah, of
best.
course. Yeah, if I'd seen Captain Boomerang again, I'd just left the cinema. But anyway, he
With his unicorn, yeah.
yeah, oh fuck me. Anyway, he yeah, so you get all this, and then his dad for some reason gets like, treated as if he killed his mum. So
Yeah.
that's what and then he knows, oh, he's innocent, so I'm gonna try and get
And
him.
because there's this alibi that he's in the store, but he doesn't look up, so they can't prove it's him. And
On the
there's this
CCTV
Wayne
footage.
Enterprises sort of technology, which is cool. They like drop that
Yeah.
in. So yeah, anyway, he runs into his like whatever that girl like Iris, and it's like oh da da da. It's like obviously the romantic interest, but he's like massive incel kind of. So
Oh yeah, of course.
that
A
was yeah.
true cell, perhaps. At that
So
time.
yeah, and then he basically sort of accidentally runs into some fourth dimension thing.
Oh
So
yeah, some weird time travel plot device zone if you run fast enough, which for some reason he's never done until now.
yeah, because he kind of reversed time a little bit in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I was like, okay, but whatever. He runs into this multiverse kind of thing. This is where it all begins, basically. Um,
And he's like, oh, I could
so
change stuff.
yeah, and then he goes like it's a really random cutscene. He just goes and then he's like chilling with Ben Affleck in some back
Yeah.
street for some reason.
And
Um,
Ben Affleck's just got done like beating some guy to death, so
Ben Affleck looks ancient, man. Like, I mean, obviously he's no spring chicken, right? He never was as Batman. He's always playing an old. He looks pretty old in this film, man. Like, he's like giving Jeremy Irons a run for his money, and,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Michael
It's like,
Keaton.
who's
Who's
Alfred
up
here
there.
again?
But anyway, yeah, he's just giving sort of some like heart to heart sort of advice and stuff, and yeah, and then he just gets in his flashy car and drives off.
Yeah, he gets in the Mercedes, man. I was a bit disappointed. It's like some weird looking. It's
That
not
was
a terrible
okay.
car, but it's like
Yeah, it wasn't his. What did he have?
he had an
Did
Aston
he have an
Martin.
Aston Martin DB5 in BVS? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah, I don't
He-
know. It was a little bit. It was low key. Maybe it was just like one of his cheaper cars because he's in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
like
maybe.
back alley, Yeah. Um, but anyway, then Iris rocks up, and I think this is really, really funny, man. It's so relatable. He like cleans his room. He uses his powers to like clean his room.
Yeah.
And he's got and then he invites her in, and like
Yeah,
the
oh, this
cupboard
is really neat
explodes,
and
with
tidy.
like
Yeah,
this.
yeah. He's like, she's like, oh yeah, this is quite neat and tidy. He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually a really neat and tidy person. And then like he like leans up against the cupboard, which like opens and like everything falls out. Like
And
that happens a few
he's
times.
like,
But
oh,
like
yeah. And she's like,
he,
oh, you got a beer, and he's got the most trap fridge ever, man. Like, it
yeah,
basically looks like my fridge.
yeah, he
Then yeah,
goes through the wall, which is like quantum superpositioning or something. It's
yeah,
like
and he has the Raquel Welch Shawshank Redemption reference posters. That was cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
He
yeah, he
gets
phases
beers.
through that to get some beers.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then when she sits down and like, because they've been talking about his like dead mum, and like she said something which is insensitive or something. She's
Yeah,
apologizing, and like he opens his beer and it like explodes,
yeah,
obviously
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
it's been going
He
way
needs
too.
the Chuck McGill like theory,
Yeah, just spin it a bit,
Yeah, 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 yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, and then at this point, we basically he starts thinking out loud, and we basically get like the plot of Inception now, because it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I
Because
just need
she's
to like
like,
plant this idea, or I just whatever. So
it's quite amusing because she's like, oh yeah, yeah, you shouldn't think about like if I could go back in time and change the
yeah,
past, and it'll eventually drive you insane. And he just starts going like full Mad Hatter, like explaining this stuff, like what he could do, because all he has to do is make sure that his mum doesn't forget like the can of tomato soup or whatever.
Mhm.
And then he dips out the door. He's like, oh yeah, thanks, it was great, we should do this again, even though it's been for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
um,
And then this is the bit. So he runs into the multiverse, and then you see this like shitty like AI Superman, and Zack Snyder Justice League flashbacks and stuff, and you're like, okay. Um,
yeah.
and then he basically runs into, well, presumably the year
Dark Flash.
2013, I suppose, because it's all during the events of Man of Steel, right? As he goes on to learn. But first of all,
Yeah.
he meets his 18-year-old self,
Hmm.
um, and
Oh yeah,
he
because
has a
he
great moment where he goes like, this is dire. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if
'cause he's
it's
like,
deliberate or not, but there is a direct Terminator quote where it's like, what year is it? He slams the guy against the wall. And it's like exactly what Carl Reese said in Terminator, which is really cool.
yeah, it's like, yeah, because he goes back, he does save his mum, but then he realizes, hang on a second, my like clone that's like, yeah, and he has to like say to them, oh yeah, so like at the family dinner, he's like, oh yeah, so what's how's your last
Yeah,
like
that's
18
cool.
years been? So
Yeah.
for no particular reason. And then
Yeah.
yeah, he sees himself like outside, he's like, oh, I have to go, oh shit, I have to go shit outside, disappears. And like, yeah, he has to come to terms with this is a strange thing because there's been, to my knowledge, been very few films where you have like, a double of the same character. Uh,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, I think Tom Hardy plays like two
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
No, they did that extremely well. I was kind of like, I almost looked up, like, did they get like his twin brother in this or something? Because it was like really, really well done. I was so surprised. Not
yeah,
surprised, but impressed,
yeah, and this is interesting because this is what I was talking about earlier. His 18-year-old self or whatever is really annoying. He's kind of like what
Yeah.
most people associate with the Flash. And then he like older
Yeah.
Flash kind of realizes, oh shit, I am really annoying. And
And
like
it's funny as
he
well because, like, I don't know how old the older Flash is meant to be because it's like
ambiguous a bit.
you assume he's like in his mid. So like I could probably assume that he's about my age. Like let's say he's 24, right? And then
Yeah.
he's meeting his 18-year-old self. Now I know for a fact, and I've thought about it sometimes. If I met my 18-year-old self, I'd think, "What a cunt, man!" I want to give him a
Yeah,
slap.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah. And this is probably how a lot of people feel like over themselves at a younger age. So yeah, that was
It's kind of like, yeah, because he tries to explain a lot of stuff to him. He obviously can't explain why he's coming.
yeah, right.
But he's like, oh yeah, so I got powers and all this, and he's like, oh man, you got like he doesn't hear any of like the important stuff about like how it's actually not all what it's cracked up to be, and there's a lot of responsibility involved. He's just like
Yeah,
all
and
he hears is,
invested
oh, you
these
got powers, that's
stocks and
great. Um, and he's like
buy Bitcoin.
he's like
A financial
blackmailing him
crisis.
as well to like do all this like use his powers to show him like cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like builds a pillar fort in 2 seconds or something, and
Oh yeah.
otherwise he'll like get his mum to come up the stairs. And yeah, is it that yeah, he's like, oh well, they end up figuring out that he has to go back in, not go back in time, but they have to recreate the accident which gave him his
Yep.
powers because it's the same day.
Yep.
Um, and that ends
Well,
up with some interesting occurrences.
yeah,
It's
because
just
they basically do. They like sit there and they do everything. They recreate it successfully, and then because it's like, oh, he realizes what day it is, and it's like, oh, this is the day I got my powers. Convenient coincidence, but
yeah,
yeah. And he sat there, and it's like, okay, so they go to the lab, and they get struck by lightning, and they both do, and then they swap powers. So like the young one has the powers, and then the older one loses his.
oh
So
yeah, and
which
it's
is a
it's interesting.
really, really interesting concept, and it's like, wow, that's like
Yeah, it's funny
really
because
like fun. It's
he
like,
has a
wow,
dynamic with himself where he has to like mentor himself in the
yeah.
past, which is like, and this is the thing. When I went into this, I'd known there were two Ezra Millers in this, and I was like, this is going to
Oh,
be insufferable. But they somehow managed to do it quite well. I mean,
yeah.
regardless of what you think of Ezra Miller, and I don't really like him as a person. I certainly didn't like any of his previous portrayals in films. He does a really good job here,
Yeah, for
for all
sure.
his long list of faults. But it's interesting. It's kind of funny, and it is something you can invest in, I think,
Oh,
in a
100%.
way, because it's really funny how like obviously you have his like style of running as well, like that you see throughout this film. When he tries doing it,
Yeah.
and then
He
like
looks
he's
really
just running
stupid.
around like an idiot, like in this massive hall, and he tries to like phase through the wall, and he just ends up running into it.
And he
Um,
sees his younger self and he's like, oh, yeah, oh, Speedy Gonzales. Yeah, I remember doing that. And then the guy, he's doing all the things, like, and he causes some massive accident.
oh
And then,
yeah, yeah, because he
you know,
tells him like, all right, so he's like trying to explain to him like you
yeah,
can't do these things. He doesn't. Yeah, the fact his clothes burn off obviously because
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
can't take the heat, and he goes out for 5 seconds, like probably what it must have been, and causes like some ridiculous accident like that is like inexplicably like hilarious, like visual, like comedy wise, just funny,
Yeah,
like all the
so
stuff
over the
goes
top.
wrong
Yeah.
possible, like yeah, and he's like nude in the middle of it all, like there's literally a ring of fire around him being like, yeah, I'm to blame. And he just ends up back in the house and he's like, oh yeah, Yeah, well, that was, and like the other Ezra Miller just sees like a massive explosion from the roof.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, what happened? Nothing.
And there's just like you said, there's a lot of unfortunate ironies with the whole Ezra because he drops down into the flat below and he's basically flash it. Well, yeah, no pun intended, but he does flash his neighbor basically. So it's like,
Yeah,
But anyway, so
yeah,
as it happens,
accidentally lighting up.
yeah, Man of Steel is kicking off in the meantime. So you've got like
Yeah.
General Zod is like doing his TV announcement, which is cool because it's like that was a really cool moment in Man of Steel, and we see him. So they brought back Michael Shannon, which was cool.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
which is
but they
funny as well
also,
because obviously one of the huge controversies with Zack Snyder's decisions in Man of Steel in particular, but with all the superheroes, is that Superman shouldn't have killed General Zod, shouldn't have snapped his neck in public in front of kids, and it's like, okay, I don't really have a big problem with that personally. I mean, there's not really much else that could have happened in that situation. And I don't mind it. I don't mind the Dark Superman thing or any of that. I think it's all fine. But I do like the fact that they brought back Michael Shannon and Zod just to give him like a different,
mm,
just kind of give him it's just interesting. They just basically explore different timelines, and that's
yeah,
quite
and this is
interesting.
like quite a desperate situation too because no one knows where Superman is, or at least for this point, because he goes to like the young
Yeah.
Ezra Miller's flat. It's kind of amusing because like all of his
Yeah,
flatmates are
yeah,
like just
yeah,
zoinked
yeah,
out of their minds, or just like too dumb to realize. He's like, oh yeah, this is my cousin
yeah.
Barry, like
Mm.
even though they literally are more or less identical.
Okay,
And
no.
yeah, they've got to figure out all this stuff. And he's like, oh, he tries to explain who Aquaman is. They all laugh him off. There's Wonder Woman, a person who like looks it up and it ends up being like some magician. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
like he's like a Batman real, and then he's like, oh yeah, like yeah, of course Batman, but like he hasn't actually been doing anything for ages.
yeah. We don't know who. No one knows who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't possibly imagine. Yeah. Oh yeah, and then he's just like, yeah, let's go to Bruce Wayne's house for no particular reason, which is like some
Yeah. Now this is the
abandoned.
funny thing. Okay,
Yeah.
because now we're getting into the real meat of the film, which is meeting Michael Keaton, or re-meeting him, whatever.
Yeah.
And I began to think about like because this is happening quite a lot in films recently where they're reprising an actor from like
I just think.
30 plus years ago into the same role and just trying to make that work. And examples of that would be Star Wars with Mark Hamill or Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford, also Blade Runner with Harrison Ford,
Hmm.
and I think more often than not, those can be pretty jarring. I know for me personally, obviously as a massive Blade Runner fan, watching Harrison Ford in 2049 has always been a little bit difficult for me. I mean, I've watched both films so many times, and it's always a bit of a struggle for me because he's aged 30 years or 35 years. So it's like, okay, obviously, like you have to forgive him for aging,
Yeah.
but it's also like it's so hard to kind of accept or just get used to whatever. Even though I've seen him, in films in between, obviously. But my point is that Michael Keaton, on the other hand, even though when we first see him, he's like got really long hair and a beard and everything,
Yeah, like
he's
homeless Batman.
he's in great shape actually. Like he's in really good shape. I was very obviously they have a wig on him and stuff, but still, like I was very like pleasantly surprised. I was impressed again by like how good Michael Keaton was in this film. Like obviously
Yeah.
when he first appears, he's doing some acrobatics and stunts, which
Yeah,
are
it's a kind of a funny fight though, because
pushing the envelope there. Yeah, because they don't
he
show his face for the
yeah, they
first.
don't show his face, and he's fighting young Ezra Miller and Ezra Miller as we know, or Barry in this case, and the young one's trying out his powers. He realizes, oh, I
Yeah,
can dodge it. This is easy, and
yeah,
like the other one's just getting like knocked like all over the place, like um, like obviously he's not used to this, and yeah, I think ends up with Michael Keaton like it does like the explanation of the time travel with them while making spaghetti,
yeah,
which is quite simple. He's it's just like, well, this is how like the past and future works. There's like obviously like crossing points, but if you mess
yeah,
with it too much, you end up with a bowl of spaghetti.
yeah,
Or
yeah. And he explained it very well. I was like, okay, nice one.
yeah,
And it was really amusing for me. It's like, oh, he's like, oh, yeah, because the young Ezra Miller doesn't, sorry, the young Barry Allen, he doesn't realize that this guy's Batman. So it's like,
oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's like, why do you think we were here? And then he goes, oh, well, haven't been Batman for a while, you know. Gotham's one of the safest cities in the world now.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
really funny, man. He's got nothing to do now. He's just like
Yeah, he's like actually gone insane. It's like,
yeah, he's
something
just
out
become a
he's literally
crazy
like in The
recluse.
Shining more or less in his house.
Yeah, basically is Chuck McGill more or less. But he's just like he's just completely withdrawn from everything. He's still got his Batcave and everything, but he's just there like
That hasn't used any of it.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great as well because he's like, they like appeal to him being like, and we need you for this because everyone's gone. No one in the Justice League is here, kind of. But we need Batman, who's like a master strategist. And he's like, yeah, don't care. He goes upstairs, which you would
yeah.
expect for him to do. Um,
Too odd for this shit.
yeah, so they like break into the Batcave. They're
Yes.
like, oh, how are we gonna do it? And they just like phase through the floor and then just open up from the top.
Oh, this is amazing, man. They
Yeah,
recreated the Batcave from Tim Burton's 1989. Like, that's amazing. What I'm so pleased with The Flash is that it's going to basically awaken I hope, awaken a whole new generation of Batman fans, or just cinema goers in general, superhero fans, into exploring, into watching the 1989 Batman and seeing Jack Nicholson's Joker, seeing everything about that aesthetic and the Batmobile, and I mean obviously all of that comes back in this,
yeah.
but
It's kind of amusing as well
it's amazing,
because
great.
yeah, like older Barry is kind of like, he's focused on, trying to track down where Superman is. And young Barry is kind of being like the audience surrogate in this case. He's just like, he's like, oh man, look at this Batmobile. He's like sitting in it. I'm
Oh yeah,
surprised he doesn't drive it off. Um, he's like, oh look at this bag laughs. Like shows it to him, and he's like,
what a great Easter egg, man. Because I think a lot of people won't pick up on what that is. Only people that have seen Batman '89 more than once will actually kind of recognize where that's from. And so I was like super sad. I was like, yeah, that's
yeah,
great little Easter egg,
all
man.
sorts of stuff. I mean, it could even count all the Easter eggs in this as well, and it's kind of like. Yeah, they have like he like kind of snaps and has a go at his younger self, being like,
Yeah,
you always take stuff for granted, like because obviously, I mean, he does his younger self doesn't know he went back in time to
does
save
he
his
not?
mum. Yeah, does he know?
You know what? Actually,
Um,
sorry, just on that moment, I've just reminded myself. Did you notice this? The amount of like, I felt like they're trying to like push a lot of meme potential into this film. Like there are a couple of like when you have like the face popping out and like in
yeah,
different timelines. I was like, yeah, they're trying a bit too hard to make like memes happen here.
I don't
That's
know.
something you can't force. Like memes just happen. That's why the does he know thing just reminded me of that. But yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Because like, how would they have known that was going to pop up? But anyway,
obviously you
uh,
do get the best of all is probably like the sort of remix of the Danny Elfman score they did, which is just like it. I mean, they do it in the Batcave a little bit, and it's like, oh, okay, that was nice, and I hope that's not it, and it certainly wasn't.
yeah,
But
yeah, because
and it's funny now. I'm thinking with Benjamin Moorfish because he was tasked with remixing effectively Vangelis's score from Blade Runner, which is, in my opinion, the best soundtrack of all time. And then you've also got, which I would also put in my probably top 10 of all time soundtracks, Batman 1989. In fact, I said so on Twitter coincidentally about a week ago, so as it happens. So he's been tasked with like basically paying homage to like a really like iconic soundtrack, and they did that very well. Like, I mean, they couldn't have done it enough for me. If I had it my way, I'd just listen to the whole score, which I did actually on the way home from the cinema. I was just listening to the 89 score again. But yeah,
yeah,
they did a nice job of that for sure.
yeah,
And obviously the Batmobile's there. Unfortunately, they don't get to drive it in this film, but still, it's just nice to see it
yeah,
again.
good to see it.
Yeah.
And one thing as well is that they yeah, so Barry kind of older Barry kind of he's trying to work out what Superman is. He can't quite do it because he obviously doesn't have the brains for it.
Yep.
And it's nice because Michael Keaton kind of I don't know what caused him to change his mind. I forget, but he does pop down and he does the legwork for him, and he wakes up to like a cup of coffee or whatever.
He's wearing thong sandals as well. I'm sure you're
Yeah, of
pregnant.
course. It's like some like proper old man outfit.
It's
Uh,
just yeah, but it's like only psychopaths wear thong sandals, man. Like you and Michael Keaton. But yeah.
yeah. Well, what can I say? And yeah,
Yeah,
they have like
so then he goes into his like area with all of his bat suits and
yeah. You
And
get like
then
opens. You get the lights open on 2, then 4, then 6, and then the middle one like.
oh, and the music. I'm like, oh, this is so good. The fan service here is just like amazing, man. And then obviously you've got like they're sat there sort of discussing how they're going to do it, and it's funny because as well he goes, oh, you had an Alfred, didn't you? You know, because I mean we don't actually see Michael Gough because obviously he passed away, sadly. Although he did have 4 appearances as Alfred, so you know he
Yeah,
had a
they
good.
don't have the AI computer one at least. So
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, they do at least make reference to him, and then anyway, so then it all culminates in them going, okay, what are we gonna? And they sort of both look up, both of the Barry Allens. They look up, and then Michael Keaton just walks up, and he's in his bat suit, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm Batman."
yeah, of course.
I'm just going crazy in the cinema, man. I'm like,
Yeah, of course.
oh, say the line, man. He actually, and it's he didn't even say it straight. He went, "Yeah, I'm Batman." I'm like, oh, this is just perfect,
It's
man.
like
And he looks,
like shameless fan service as well. Like
yeah, and it's like, okay, how good is it? And I'm just thinking, like, what I was most concerned about with this film, not that I knew much about it, but I was just thinking, I'm just like worried about. I can't remember exactly how old Michael Keaton is. I think he's 78, but how a 78-year-old in the Batman suit and the 89 Batman suit, but any Batman suit regardless, and I'm just like, oh, this could easily go wrong. But actually, he looked really good in it. I was very pleasantly surprised. Like,
you have his
he's
character
kept in
poster
good
as well. He's
shape.
got this like
Yeah, and it's
smug
like,
sort of grin on his face. It's kind of funny, but like you
oh,
get
so good. And you've
you
got the
get like
gift now as well, so yeah.
the modernized Batwing as well, like that pops up.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Because
glad they kept that.
it's sort of when was the last time we saw it? I think it just sort of crashed. The Joker shot it
Yeah,
down
Joker
in
shot down
89.
with this comically long gun,
Yeah, that's right. So Batman must have taken it back and modified it,
Yeah, significantly.
which is amazing. Oh yeah, I
Oh,
love it.
it's
So
great to see them in it as well. Like they've obviously had a lot of adjustments to it. The fact it can rotate and all this.
oh yeah, I love that. That was such a cool idea, such a cool concept. You've took already one of the best and most iconic Batman vehicles there is, and you made it even better. Like that was not something I expected.
Yeah,
Uh,
you have because they figure out oh yeah, Superman's in
yeah, for some
Russia,
reason, yeah, they work out he's in Russia,
like
so
being
they go
held in
over
some
there.
like like diving bell chamber or something like.
Yeah. Now, yeah, so they basically rock up in Russia, and they get there.
Barry has to figure out how to deal without
Yep.
not having his powers.
And then they discover my 3 favorite words in the English dictionary when combined. Russian sleep experiment.
Oh yeah.
That's what's happening to Supergirl, the Russian sleep experiment. If you know, you know. Um, so
Okay.
yeah, that's happening.
She just
Uh,
looks exhausted, to be honest.
yeah, I don't know if that was a little Joaquin Phoenix Joker reference there. I'm not sure, but but yeah, man, so that happened, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Because I wasn't,
Yeah, they're also like,
because I
where's
thought it was
Superman
Superman
kind
at
of.
first. I was like, okay, I know Henry Cavill's not in this, but like, what's going on then? I'm like, because they only show you from back, and so there's short hair and dark hair, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then obviously, and then I'm remembering, oh yeah, Supergirl's in this, so
Yeah,
and then
played by.
they have to escape because the Russian like soldiers find them,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, you get some like amusing with the bullets, and Batman's cape is obviously bulletproof, which is cool.
Yeah. This is the first time Michael Keaton doesn't actually kill anyone in a Batman film.
Think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, does he kill anyone in '89?
Yeah,
Oh
he
yeah,
kills the
basically kills the
Joker.
Joker. Yeah,
Yeah,
good point.
literally.
Well,
Um,
yeah, he does.
yeah.
um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
as well. Yeah,
yep.
there's something that reminds me of The World Is Not Enough as well, the way they
Yeah, I
go
knew
up
you
the
were going to say that.
shaft,
But more importantly, there was another great little callback where he goes, "How much do you weigh?" Because that was obviously
Oh
the
yeah,
connection.
because he says it to all of them. Yeah, he just
Yeah.
it's funny because like he's like putting all his gadgets on his thing, then he just pulls out a tape measure, he's doing it with, physics.
That was great.
It's just like yeah, because the jazz music stops. It's just like, yeah, could do all that. Because a lot of the thing, it's a funny thing is, I think in superhero films, one of the main problems that the humor has is when they try to be like, oh, self-aware, like, oh yeah, we know, guys.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Like
in
in the
this, I think they managed to strike it just right,
oh,
most of the
definitely.
time. Even when like the title cards are going, and then like he gets distracted by like all these people calling it his name, and then like they actually start the title again. But yeah, I mean they pop out. Yeah, because they're all like being held at gunpoint. What was the thing that what's his name? When what Batman says, he's like, oh yeah, we'll just try to stay alive or something.
Yeah.
When they're like obviously gonna die. And then Supergirl actually decides to pop out and start like destroying these lot.
Reanimate, yeah.
Yeah.
She's great, man. This actress, what's her name?
Sasha Calle, I think.
Yeah, she's like very out of the box selection. I mean, she's obviously she's originally or her ancestry is of Colombian descent. I think she looks great as Supergirl in this movie in general. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is whatever. And
Yeah, it's one thing. This is another thing that I was a bit disappointed with the film is they didn't do as much with her as they probably could have. I mean, to be fair, it's not about her. It's not even It's not even secondarily about her because you even have the focus on Batman as well.
Yeah.
But they have this thing for like 5 seconds where she's like, "Oh, well, will I actually help you?" Like for seconds, like, is she gonna join Zod or something? Like,
Yeah.
and then they would have a real issue like dealing with that. And you might have a Batman versus
yeah.
Superman situation here. But
yeah, because she kind of goes through the Superman arc. It's like, oh, you're not my people, and it's like, well, these people are scum. Maybe you are my people because you saved me.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like.
No, it was okay. I mean, they had to do that all very quickly because
Yeah,
the film itself was actually kind of long. It was 2 hours 24 minutes.
It's 2.5 hours, but it's very well paced. I mean, it should be.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is kind of on the long side, but actually, I didn't feel it at all, which is relieving. Because imagine a 2.5 hour bad Flash film that could have so easily happened, and it didn't. So this is the thing. This is my low expectations. I'm like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah, true.
I'm kind of bracing myself here, but I'm like, oh, I could just keep getting pleasantly surprised. I'm like, oh, great, wow, this is actually really good.
Yeah, cause it's interesting because she dips. She was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And then they have to figure out how to get older Barry's powers back. So they try to recreate the accident. It's interesting because I was like, how did he memorize all the chemicals on the shelf? And those don't even play into it because he just gets struck by lightning more or less.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It's because they go back to Wayne Manor, and then you have this bit with Supergirl, and she almost says billions must die. Very close, but not quite. We see Michael Keaton moving around. Like I said, I mean, I'm almost certain he's wearing a wig, but nevertheless, he's in fantastic shape. I have to say it again, like for a bloke that age to be in that good shape, and he's actually like a really fine actor in this as well. He's just rolling back the years, and it's like. Because obviously, when Michael Keaton was actually cast as Batman originally back in the 80s,
everyone hated it. They got like 50,000 letters, I think.
Yeah. It was controversial because he was known as like a comedy guy. It was almost like the modern equivalent would be probably Bryan Cranston as Walter White, because obviously he was known for being a comic actor and then in a serious role. And the same thing happened to Michael Keaton 30 plus years ago, and and this even more so just plays really well to his strengths, and it's just his expressions, his acting. It's like where that might have felt slightly odd back in '89. Here it's perfect. It's just the right role for him. He does it so well, and you can tell. I feel like you can tell he's having a good time on the set.
Of course, he probably got a good paycheck for this too.
I hope so.
But still, one thing that I found in this, because they're obviously, it's a ridiculous plan to strike him with lightning and tries to recreate this again. And he pulls out the line, like, you want to get nuts, let's go nuts, which I don't feel the situation called for it. I think
No, I loved it. I didn't care, man. It didn't quite fit right. It kind of reminded me of in Planet of the Apes. I want to say, I can't remember what the title is. It might be The Dawn or Rise. I can't remember which one, but it's the first one in the prequel trilogy, and they pay homage to the original Planet of the Apes by using a quote which just doesn't quite age well. So he goes, get your dirty hands off you. No, get your dirty hand off me, you filthy ape, or something like that. And when Charlton Heston says it in Planet of the Apes, it's really good. But then, 40, 50 years later, it's like, no one talks like that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got Michael Keaton going, want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. And while that, out of context, would be strange if you had that. I was so happy when I heard that. I was like, oh yeah,
I don't know.
that's
It
so
didn't
good.
hit. It didn't hit the
It
same.
actually made more sense in this film than it did when he said it in '89.
It never made sense to start with. Like,
Well, I don't know. I loved it. I loved it.
it's such a weird scene. Like when that
Yeah, it
happens.
was. But
Still,
what was also a strange decision was, I mean, maybe it just shows how little fucks Michael Keaton gives now. But it's like he sends like a giant bat to float above Wayne Manor. You know? It's
oh
like,
yeah.
okay, you clearly either live in the middle of nowhere, or you just don't care anymore if anyone knows you're Batman
Well,
or not.
it's like in Batman Returns where like but conveniently the bat signal shines directly into his living room. You know,
Oh
and you realize, oh yeah,
yeah,
let's get up and go. You know,
it has
does
made
nothing
made for
else.
a good gift, to be fair, reaction video.
Oh yeah, of course. But
But the
still,
thing is, as well, though, it's like he, yeah, he's so good, and it doesn't just let's entertain the fact that like he's dispatched of all the villains at this point because, like I said, Gotham's now in this universe, this is one of the safest cities in the country. So that presumably means that all of the rogues gallery,
you killed all of them.
yeah, they're all dead or behind bars or like insane. So I mean, Joker. Obviously, we know. I mean, spoilers, but Joker died in Batman '89.
So
We probably should have said this at the beginning, but if you haven't watched Batman '89, you should watch that before you watch The Flash. But anyway, I think that's kind of obvious.
yeah,
But you've got that. You've got like I don't know, like obviously Two-Face, Riddler, whatever. All the villains are like obviously dealt with. So he's just sat there, just like mucking around with his own whatever. I don't
it's
know.
funny,
It's
yeah,
like
because you never really see that with Batman. Like, you
yeah,
like different portrayals. The most radical departure is obviously Ben Affleck's one. So,
yeah,
and then and this is like something completely different. It's like, yeah, Batman's like done his job, you know, so he's just like got no
yeah.
purpose.
It's really funny. And there's another great line because when Barry Allen's actually like strapped to the chair and stuff, he's like they're
Yeah.
ready to, and he just goes, for the record, I think this is insane, but he's
Yeah,
going
so
along with it anyway. He doesn't care, man. He's just having a good time, you know.
yeah. This is the thing as
Yeah.
well.
That's a great line as well.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's why Michael Keaton, as a comic actor, is like just so good at delivering that stuff. He's like, for the record, I think this is insane. It's
Yeah.
great,
This is
especially
funny
the
'cause, yeah,
characters
because
he's.
it's like, oh yeah, we've got Batman with us. What can go wrong? The funny thing is
If Batman's calling you insane, then you know
yeah,
you got a problem.
they strike him with lightning once. They try it a second time. It doesn't work. And at
Yeah.
this point, I thought there's a good chance that this old Barry might die, which might like fuck
Yeah.
up a lot of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but it turns out it doesn't because then Supergirl pops up and she's like, "Yeah, I'm going to take you to the sky, LMAO." And by this point, she's in like the suit now, not
Yeah.
in like the straight jacket or whatever they had her in the Russian place.
Yeah.
And there's also something I forgot to mention with like they don't really address it. I'm just wondering if like in this weird timeline the Soviet Union still exists because they kind of like the facility it still has a giant red star on it, but I guess IRL in Russia they haven't even bothered to clear off half of those.
Yeah.
So, but still, and like I'm like the one person who cares about the history in this film. But still, she manages to get his
Well, they do
powers.
have like Chernobyl in Zack Snyder's Justice League, so it's
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's true.
not really a stretch to go there. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so they do, spoiler alert, end up getting his powers back by striking for the third time with lightning.
that's what I did
And-
like though. Like I said, with this film, like I just don't know what to expect, which
yeah,
is really refreshing because I'm like, I'm so used to. This is also why I avoid trailers at all costs because they often give away the entire film.
yeah.
But like, I was really like, I wasn't expecting to be like in this much suspense for a film
Yeah.
like this. I was just kind of like, oh, like I really didn't know what was going to happen. That's
Somehow they make you
so
care
refreshing.
like about the Flash in this.
Yeah.
But still, oh yeah.
And also, like we kind of skipped over the bit where it's like old Barry explains to Michael Keaton why he's there because he's saving his mom, and then the
Yeah,
young Barry overhears it. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, oh, you use the monkey as a dartboard, It's like,
yeah, 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 exactly. It's kind of funny. But
uh,
still, he yeah. I mean this is I think the point where they all decide to go off and fight
yep,
Zod.
yep.
You got like the
Yeah,
bat
you
wing.
have this massive action set piece, which is cool, and it's great because they basically recreate Man of Steel minus Superman.
It's more, something I'll say is the final fight in Man of Steel. I mean, I remember we were watching it like, late at night. I was like falling asleep. It was that boring. I'm not gonna lie. There's nothing that interesting about it, in my opinion. This at least has, because I
Killing
didn't,
thousands of people. Yeah.
yeah, genuinely speaking, I didn't know what was gonna happen.
I just found it really great how they managed to recreate the entire thing, because there is a moment where they sort of hand over Superman, and then Amy Adams, Lois Lane comes to like, whatever, and whatever, they declare war because of that. But then in this timeline, it's like, oh, you haven't brought Superman. We'll take this as a declaration of war. Like everything's a declaration of war, General
Oh,
Zod,
of
man.
course.
Like your toast being too cold is a declaration of war. So
Yeah, so if you burn it slightly too much, yeah. He
yeah,
Yeah, it's a funny thing as well because he ends up having a chat with Supergirl while the fight is going down. Like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, they're like, oh well, Kal-El's not here, she said, and then he's like, yeah, well, yeah, you know that DNA MacGuffin that has all of our race's DNA in it, our species, whatever. It's actually in use, so we're gonna they pull the what's it called? They end up fighting, and yeah, she's like, oh yeah, what did you do to him? Like, and he's like, yeah, the infant did not survive. Like, you
yeah.
know, um,
Whoa.
and the thing is that
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of Mike Zod, General Zod, like Mike Shannon is more of a villain in this than
yeah,
than he is in because like in Man of Steel, he's kind of like almost a sympathetic character. You're kind of like, he's just trying to fight for the survival of his race, whatever, right? In this, he's like, yeah, I'm a child killer, man. I don't care, It's like
this
I'm
is
just
the
here for
thing.
destruction. It's like, oh, okay.
I have to give credit again to how have I forgotten her name? Sasha Calle again
Yeah,
for her Supergirl in this. She's like a lot more unhinged in this, which kind of you never really see with Superman, I think. She's like when
yeah,
she like hears this, she gets really like pissed off.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
phases the shit out of him. And this is the thing. This thing we forgot to mention as well. This got like rinsed when like kind of an image of this got released with the Flash suit, which is improvised out of a bat suit Michael
Oh
Keaton's
yeah,
on.
oh yeah, that's right.
Because while they're trying to get his powers back, young Flash is like, because young Flash has nicked the ring. Well, he hasn't nicked it, he's borrowing it, the ring that gives him the
Oh
suit
yeah,
you
that's
see in the
right.
film. He gives it back to him, and gives it back to old Flash, because new Flash has been like building this suit like by
Yeah,
spray painting. It's really like bad on purpose, like because like it's
yeah, yeah,
improvising
yeah.
one of the spare bat suits. And like, he's like got this epic music, him spray painting like this Flash logo on top of the bat
Yeah.
suit. And like he's spray painting red. Then like it just like stops. He's just like soaring off the ears, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's the bit where they're like about to eject from the Batwing, and they're like ready, and then he turns his face. It's like the mask is completely like it's really
yeah,
funny.
it's so terrible. Like
It's really good.
it's great as well. And also it means that there's some sort of difference between the two still. The fact that
Yeah, yeah,
his
yeah.
suit
He's
obviously
got
doesn't work as well because the speed and
although
friction.
you know what, although it's good because they do actually address it because the young Barry goes like, oh, this suit is too tight, and everything. And it's like, yeah, because at the beginning of the film, I was like, why am I seeing so much of Ezra Miller's like wedgie, man? I don't want to see his ass crack the entire film. And then they go and address it, so I'm kind of like, all right, I can kind of forgive that. But it's like not really far off the, Batman and Robin style nipple suits. It's really not far away from that.
True. But still,
Uh, but yeah,
um
one thing that kind of jarred me a little bit is the fact that, like, okay, you've got like General Zod, well, effectively Kryptonites fighting. I mean, there should be no fight whatsoever because it's General Zod, his like henchwoman, some random giant because you
yeah,
always need one then, and then like loads of foot soldiers, and it's very clear from the start that they would instantly wipe out this like
US
army,
military.
whatever, like not even army, but like soldiers that have come to this whatever this meeting. So it's very clear this battle should take about 2 minutes really, but for some reason it rages on for
But
a
it's one
long
of the things where it's like, against
because
the
you've got
odds.
three separate
It's like,
boss fights happening. You've got well, not really. You've got the both Flashes trying to like do their thing. You've got Batman trying to do his thing, and then you've got Supergirl versus General Zod. So yeah,
yeah. And
they did a very good job of balancing them all out. Actually, I must say.
yeah,
Although
it's like it doesn't get too because every time it starts getting a bit too long, they just cycle on to the next character and they just,
yeah,
keep going and going.
and
Just
and
keeps kind of
every
fresh.
time, and to be honest, watching it, I was just mainly wanting because the one they used the least, I think, was Batman. But when they did use him, it was just pure fan service. You've got like he's in the Batwing. You've got the music, like the '89 soundtrack. You've got it going there, and he's like using all these gadgets. It's like really over the top. It's so good, and it's
Mm,
just Michael Keaton having a good time, man. It's
yeah.
I'm absolutely loving it, absolutely loving it. And then you get into the crux of it, which ends up, Batman going like kamikaze, man, to take out this like spaceship.
Yeah,
And
because he
then,
gets shot down, and then he's like, "Oh, the eject seat's not working, first time ever," and he's like,
yeah,
"Oh, well, guess I'm gonna fly into this," and it ends up not doing anything after all. I was like, "Oh shit, he actually died."
yeah, and it's
Um,
like, whoa, like, like, I did not expect that
this is
whatsoever.
the
I'm like,
thing as
shit.
well.
And then Supergirl is killed as well. It's
Yeah,
like,
she literally. I mean, this is my one chance to make a Metroid reference. She gets this is the exact plot of Metroid Dread. Like they just stab her in the chest, steal her DNA, and leave.
oh, really?
Um, but then
Mate,
like,
like, I don't know, and it's kind of like one of those things. I mean, we've sat here probably many times on this podcast, and every film goer, anyone that's ever seen a film has sort of gone like, oh, well, that's unrealistic. Oh, well, why did the hero never die? Oh, you have these kind of devil's advocates, sarcastic, like, well, that would never happen. Happens a lot in Lord of the Rings, for example. But in this, it actually happens. You're like, whoa, and then
no, but
Barry
this is
Allen
the
goes,
thing.
oh, okay, let's just reverse time then, and change
Yeah,
a
this is
couple
the
of
thing.
things.
I was like,
And then they die again, and it's like, well, and then Michael Keaton gets a really sad death. He's like, well, it's like, I wanted to bring you back. He's like, you did bring me back, and then he dies, and you're like, it's like really emotional all of a sudden. You're like, what the
yeah,
fuck?
as well. And this is the thing I was thinking when I was watching this. I was like I was like mentally rolling my eyes. I was like, oh, they're going to use time travel back and they're going to
Yeah,
fix
yeah,
it.
yeah,
They
yeah,
have like infinite tries, and then it's like it stops working. And it's like, hang on a minute,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was
it's
like,
not going
oh,
to
this
work.
exactly
Yeah,
because it could have so easily been really cringe, and that's what I was kind of expecting. But then I'm like, oh no, it's not. The only thing that was a little bit, um, I don't know, what's the exact word? Kind of embarrassing, I suppose, for Supergirl. There's like how many times you see her get stabbed in various ways, and it's just like boom, and then turns his head, boom again. It's just like how many death scenes did she have to film then?
yeah.
Because
So
that's quite an emotional thing for an actor to do, right? And there's like. You're just getting like killed like over and over again. It's like, oh, okay, we
yeah, it's a
get
shame,
it.
but still, yeah. This is a funny thing as well. This is also like as like well, Barry has to deal with his like fixer mentality kind of because
Yeah,
this whole thing just ends up being like a downward spiral. And it comes to the point where this Dark Flash pops up, who
yeah,
is like who you see earlier in the film, but
yeah,
he's
yeah,
like
yeah. That's right. Because I was thinking
unbelievably
like, okay, so who's the Flash's villain apart from Boomerang?
well. You
So I'm
have
like,
Reverse Flash, but this isn't Reverse Flash, so
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm like, yeah, 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 right. And I'm like, and because they do little like hints at it, and then it comes and confront, and then it turns out it's him, like a third Flash, and then it's like, whoa, and then you're getting into really like really interesting territory here
yeah,
with
because
like,
he's like
wow,
he's like oh I'm so close to fixing it, he's like going insane basically. Well, he is insane by this point.
yeah,
He's like unfathomably old. His suit
yeah,
has like turned some like purple crystal like mess.
covered in debris and stuff.
Yeah, and he's like, well, and he's stuck in a paradox because
Yeah,
um, Flash, the Flash that we start with, created him, but he's also the one thing that's stopping him from, doing what he needs. So he
hmm
can't kill him. He tries to kill him, but then the younger Flash sacrifices himself, like because they have like this conversation beforehand where it's like, you have to give up. Like this world just simply dies. It's just that simple. Which,
yeah,
I was like, that's actually quite a bold move. Like,
yeah,
you just
dark as
don't save
fuck,
the day
man.
in this case.
Yeah,
Like, and he has to, let like they both effectively. He has to let his world go. He has to let his mum go as well.
yeah,
He has to let himself go. Literally, like
yeah,
watching yourself die, kind of twice in this case.
yeah. Bit of
Um,
something there,
which
yeah.
is strange. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I can't fault this film for. It does a lot of like new things in a genre that is like feels more and more timed by the year, uh,
Yes.
for the most part, thanks
Yeah.
to certain studios. But um, yeah, the young one sacrificed himself for the Barry regular, I guess in this case, and
Yeah, and then we get to the bit where I'm basically having a boner in the cinema because okay, so let me read out the list of references we get here.
oh, this is ridiculous. The amount of
Because you get like
references.
the worlds colliding, right? So you get like okay, you get all these Supermen. So you get like the 1940s, I assume George Reeves Superman. You've got the Christopher Reeve Superman and Superwoman as well from his like
This is the
four
insane.
films I think he did. Then you've got Nick Cage
Nicolas
Superman.
Cage's one, man. You know
I
about
was
this, I
like,
assume, right?
I was bamboozled because I was like, I know that's Nicolas Cage,
No, but
but when was he Superman? So then I went and looked it up, and it's like, no, that was Nick Cage. Like they actually, because that was he said in an interview. He says all sorts of stuff, doesn't he? And
yeah.
anyway, but
This is the thing.
he was like, oh, one of his dream roles was to play Superman, and he's kind of finally done that. So
But
yeah,
did you? This is the thing. I don't know if you know this. This was meant to be. This is a film they spent like 100 million or maybe $200 million on in the early 2000s, I think. It was Tim Burton's Superman with
that's right.
Nick Cage,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
never ended up being made. Superman Lives, I think. Which we could do without. But it's so I was like, because I'd known about that, I was like incredulous as to the fact they had this there because he's like fighting some giant robot spider or whatever, and I was like, he's here. Like you see
Yeah,
everyone. Like that was really
and best. I've saved the best till last. The best of all, and this is where I lost my
it's
shit,
so
man.
great.
You have like just in the bottom right hand corner, you just have like Adam West 1960s Batman running around, and you're like, oh wow, they really went there. Like they really did that.
Yeah.
Just like, I do want to like have a little clap on the podcast first time, man. Just like hats off to whoever's idea that was. You're a legend. Thank you. I love you. That was just the best thing I've ever seen, man. I was like,
Yeah.
they didn't have to do that, but they did it, man. Like, oh, I couldn't believe it, man. It's so good. So
Yeah,
good.
this is like the case of this is like the oh, honestly, this is probably gonna end up being like one of the most guilty pleasure films, like,
Yeah.
just for this reason. It's not because it's a Flash film. No one cares about Ezra Miller. Just so you can watch like Batman memorabilia like on a replay. Um
Amazing. Yeah, I
so
probably when I do rewatch this, I'll just skip the first half hour or so and just like get to Michael Keaton. It's amazing. Not that the first half hour or anything is bad. It's just like there's what I enjoyed most about this film was all this Batman stuff, which is great.
um
So yes, all that basically gets resolved. But
he has to go back in time
Ezra
and
Miller does just do one little thing. Well, actually, he goes back to see his mum.
which is kind of like tragic, kind of. Because
Yeah,
he has
that's
to
very like,
effectively let his mum die.
yeah, it hit a really emotional spot, and I was like, wow, I wasn't like, like on the verge of tears or anything, but I was
Like
kind of like,
Terminator style.
yeah, I was kind of like, whoa, 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 like, damn, I wasn't, after everything that's happened in this movie, now you've got this really emotional moment, and you're like, it's really well done, and you're like, oh, wow, okay, didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it's funny because he has to disguise himself as well. He's still got like the tags on like the glass and everything. Like,
Yeah, and but then he does, he goes back because he has to take the can of tomatoes out of her trolley and then put it or the cart with tomatoes as
yeah.
they would say. So he gets the can and he puts it on the shelf and then he kind of stops for a moment and then it cuts back to
Yeah, because
like
he sees the CCTV camera and he's like, hang on a second.
yeah, and then it cuts to the present day and then it's like, okay, it's the day of his father's appeal, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this fresh evidence is here, and then you realize like, okay.
Oh, this is the
See,
thing. I
yeah,
was watching this and I was like kind of annoyed because I was like, okay, yeah, he's getting his dad out of prison, but they would undermine the meaning of the film because it's all about like
yeah,
going back in time and changing stuff will have consequences. And
yeah.
I was like, they just let him get away with this. But it turns out, oh yeah, this is all great. His dad's gonna be free. He's getting this date with this girl, and he's being really awkward. And then he's like, oh yeah, because this is all possible thanks to Bruce Wayne.
Whoa, yeah, but before that happens,
Yeah,
I just think it's really good the fact that like, because you sat there and you're thinking, oh, the Flash is kind of lost, right? Like he hasn't achieved anything. He's learned a bit, but that's it. Um, but obviously he does just move the can from the middle shelf to the top shelf, so then his dad has to look up to reach it, and that is what gets him off. And I think
yeah,
that was
yeah, yeah.
that's a very because I'm the number one critic for like legal dramas. I hate them. I hate any film that finishes in a courtroom. They're almost always cringe and just ridiculous.
Yeah,
But in this case, I was like, wow, okay, that was actually really good. So it's like, okay, it
yeah.
wasn't all for nothing. There is a happy ending for him. And then, yes, Henry,
Oh,
take it away.
yeah. Well, for starters, he gives like a terrible, like a Joe Biden level, like quote to the press about spaghetti and
Yeah.
tomato sauce. Yeah, so it ends up moving to the top shelf, and that's what changed everything. they were like, right, that made no sense. So yeah, he says like, oh yeah, I got to date with this girl, that's all great somehow, despite the fact I'm like an actual incel. And he's like, he's like, all right, I'll get to meet Bruce Wayne, like, and thank him for all this
He
stuff.
calls him on the phone as well, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah, yeah. And like he like it's the same car, he pulls up. And
And
I'm
I'm
like,
sat there waiting for Ben Affleck. I'm like, okay,
no, no,
like here's
it's
my
not
Sigma moment now. It's coming.
it's not so it's not I realized like, oh, it's a wisp of white hairs. This is gonna be Michael Keaton again. And then it's fucking George Clooney, man. I've never had so much like whiplash watching a film ever. Like
Yeah,
that's like it's kind of funny because I was like, I hate seeing him, but at the same time, it's like it's a cruel joke, but they know like
they
they
know
knew what they were
exactly what
doing.
they were doing.
It's like he's like Ezra Miller's basically trapped in hell now, where George Clooney's Batman. Probably Gotham is like the most dangerous place to live in the world, like with how shitty their Arkham Asylum is. If you remember, like it's
I,
basically made out of like paper. And I'm saying, what would have been really funny? I mean, obviously it wouldn't have worked because it would have been too obvious if he pulled up in that shitty like toy Batmobile like from his
yeah,
film.
yeah. We had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, he's the trial.
Man, I cannot believe they pulled George Clooney out of the bag. I
That was
was
somehow
really, and they did it well.
that made Nicolas Cage in this film look normal.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, literally.
no
That's like,
way.
oh, that's a side issue now. I can't believe they did that. And they did it so well. Like, it's just such a great like in joke. Basically, it's like a joke that everyone's in on, including George Clooney himself, who like basically disowned that Batman, but like was refunding people's tickets to the
Yeah.
premiere, the red carpet, out of his own pocket. And then just shamelessly walks up as Bruce Wayne at the end of this film, and you're like,
It's
oh wow,
So I hate to see him, but I can respect that
that is
it's like
brilliant.
them admitting like for their past mistakes,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
him too. It's like it's it's
I
so
don't think
cruel
it's
but
going to lift
so
him.
funny. Like
Yeah, I don't think it's going to lift him any higher in our rankings, but we will
no,
obviously.
I think yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
That's effectively the
Wow.
end of the film. I
What an
mean,
ending. But there was a post-credit
there's
scene
a
that I
post credit
missed.
scene with
Did
like
you
him
watch it?
and he's trying to yeah. Did you see it?
No, I didn't. What happened?
Well, there is a post credit
Oh, I
scene.
was
It's
just
just
reeling from this George Clooney moment. I was like, wow. I was just
yeah, I
walking
was still
out
reading
cinema,
from it.
shaking my head, like, but in a good way,
Yeah, the post-credit scene is just him assuming this world with George Clooney as Batman, trying to like find any useful superhero. He's like found Aquaman, like, and who's like trashed after being in a pub. Um,
Okay.
and he like falls asleep in a puddle.
Oh,
And asks him to go get more beer.
okay.
And he's like, my apartment's literally right there. It's like across the street.
Huh.
Um, and that's basically it. To be honest, that's
Well,
how the
because there is going to be an Aquaman 2, right? So whatever. I didn't watch the first one, so
yeah,
I am not going to watch the second one probably. So who
yeah,
cares?
exactly.
But yeah.
But
Okay.
that's effectively the end of the film. So
Wow. So what I am a bit surprised, just before we move on to the rankings, I'm like curious now because last night you messaged me and said, okay, we're not talking about this until tomorrow. There's plenty of rants to happen. What were you going to rant about? Because
no,
as
I was
far
just
as I'm
like
aware,
it's just
you've had a
not in
pretty
terms of
similar experience to me.
not in
I
terms of
enjoyed.
rants, but in terms of just like the stuff. There was plenty to talk about, especially like the like that was like right after I was thinking specifically about the George Clooney ending because I was just like it's like having P. That's like how I imagine PTSD to be when like you see like like this thing is
Yeah,
only associated with like a traumatic event, like watching Batman and Robin, man, for how terrible that film was.
yeah.
Um, I was just like,
I
I
can't
don't know,
believe they did that, man.
but I've gotten over it. And I realized just how funny it is. So it's kind of
Okay,
like,
okay,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just like a really like well delivered joke, basically.
yeah. That's just like, I think that's probably the biggest surprise of any film I think I've ever seen because I did not see that coming. I mean, it's
Well, in that sense, yeah, I'd probably have to agree with you. Yeah, just yeah, um,
yeah, it's great to be fair though.
yeah. And it's very like specific though. You need to have had a back. That's why it's so amusing doing it on this specific podcast as well, because
Yeah,
we've done all the Batman, we've reviewed all of them, we've ranked all of them. So we really are like the target audience for that joke as well.
yeah,
Not everyone will understand what's going on there. And
yeah.
In fact, imagine going to the Flash and you haven't seen Batman '89 or any of those films, and you're just like, oh,
If you haven't seen,
go
if you
over
haven't
your
seen
head, wouldn't
Batman and Robin, then you'll be like, why is George Clooney here? Like,
it? Yeah.
I feel really bad for the people who won't understand that.
Well, you know what it is? Now I forgive them for Batman and Robin because it's kind of worth it now for the payoff for that joke.
Yeah.
Watching that film, suffering through that film, I should say, was worth it because now you get to appreciate the joke from the Flash. If you don't have that, then you just go, oh, who's this guy? You know, it's like the guy from the coffee.
That is like, yeah, I can't get over like just there's so many like layers to that joke in terms of just
Yeah.
like there's so I've like an entire like cauldron's worth of emotions about that like I haven't resolved and probably will never resolve the rest of my life. But anyway,
Well, now we're going to resolve the rankings. That was a great segue. So we're going to rank each. Well, we've already ranked each actor who plays Batman. The list is 1, Robert Pattinson. Oh, so okay, we split them into separately Batman's and Bruce Wayne's. So number 1, Batman, as in when he is Batman in his suit and everything, is number 1, Robert Pattinson. Number 2, Christian Bale. 3, Ben Affleck. 4, Michael Keaton. 5, Val Kilmer. 6, Adam West. 7, George Clooney.
Why do we put Adam West below Val Kilmer?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. And I'm kind of slightly tempted to put Ben Affleck above Christian Bale as well. But I'm not sure.
I don't know. That's actually quite tough. Just
Yeah, I think we just have to trust with what, because obviously it's been a while since we came back to this. So I think we've just got to trust ourselves and leave it as it is. So, yeah, Ben Affleck.
Yeah, but still, I still think can we at least amend Adam West's spot because I don't think he deserves to be below Val Kilmer.
All right, sure, let's do it. I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah,
Val Kilmer.
we just just for this, can we like move George Clooney, like put an extra space like beneath him in glass, just for fun.
Well, actually, we do have a right to put Adam West higher because he was in this film technically in a way. So yeah, all right.
For the emotions that you feel.
Bruce Wayne, number 1, Ben Affleck. Number 2, Christian Bale. Number 3, Robert Pattinson. Number 4, Val Kilmer. Number 5, Michael Keaton. Number 6, Adam West. Number 7, child Bruce Wayne. Number 8, George Clooney. Yeah, again, I'm wondering why Val Kilmer's 4th above Michael Keaton and Adam West. I think we could definitely move Michael Keaton higher.
Yeah. Yeah, just for this film, like actually, because he's like portrays of Bruce Wayne that has like we've never seen before, and he's great.
I'm actually almost slightly tempted to put him above Robert Pattinson, but
no, that's too insane.
A bit far. But okay, Val Kilmer's going below Michael Keaton now, and below Adam West as well as Bruce Wayne. I think so.
Yeah,
because all Val Kilmer does is like fire Jim Carrey, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, he causes the entirety of that film.
Yeah. All right. So now 4 Michael Keaton, 5 Adam West, 6 Val Kilmer, 7 child Bruce Wayne, 8 George Clooney.
Yeah, 9 George Clooney.
Now we've got a bunch of bat suits to rank. Now we have one new bat suit.
Ben Affleck's new one, and Michael Keaton's upgraded one, I think.
I think it's the same suit, actually.
Yeah,
so the current ranking we've got is number 1, the bat suit from the Batman. 2, the really cool trench coat one from The Nightmare, which Ben Affleck wears. Number 3, the Dark Knight / Dark Knight Rises sort of modified bat suit.
Yeah.
4, the Batfleck cloth suit. That's kind of his main suit that he wears in BVS and Zack Snyder Justice League. Number 5, we have the Batfleck armor suit from BVS. 6, the Batsuit from Batman Begins. 7, the Batsuit from Batman '89, which is, I guess, because Batman Begins is slightly upgraded from that one. So that's effectively the suit we see in this film. Number 8, the Val Kilmer suit. Number 9, Adam West. And number 10, George Clooney's nipples. So, where are we going to put the blue and grey cloth suit? Because I thought that was really cool.
Maybe just put it above his other cloth suit.
Yeah, I was thinking that. But maybe above the Dark Knight Rises suit?
Is very cool, to be fair.
It is cool, but I think it's cool because it's kind of playing homage to Adam West and the comics of Batman. So maybe
I think the main problem with the that we mentioned with the Dark Knight Rises is the fact his you can't what you can see of his face is strange.
Yeah, he's got no the mouth hole is too small. But anyway, that's why the Batman suit is top. So okay, so the Batfleck Flash cloth suit, blue/grey, is going in at fourth. Batmobile. We're not necessarily going to re-rank them, but I think it's just worth reading them out again. Number one, the Batmobile from Batman '89, which is also in this film and also in Batman Returns. Then the Batmobile from The Batman. Number three is Batfleck's Batmobile. Number four is the Tumbler. Number five is the 1966 Batmobile. Number six is Val Kilmer's Batmobile, and number seven is George Clooney's Batmobile. And I'm still a bit pissed off that Tumbler is fourth above the 66 one. Can you just remind me why that's the case? Because that definitely wasn't my decision.
Look, this is because the scenes that Tumblr is in are a lot cooler, and you don't have sped up footage of it. I can say that much. Obviously, the other one looks cooler, but doesn't trump the actual, all the stuff that. I mean, the fact the Batpod is literally inside of the Tumblr as well. That is also a bonus. There's a lot of cool stuff that.
I know, but the '60s Batmobile is so classic and it's. I mean, I know you don't really see it in the movie, but in the TV series, it has so much to do. So that's
but we
kind
won't
of biased by that, but we are ranking the movies, so yeah, that's fine.
As well. This is this is literally the same discussion. This is the same logic you use for putting the Vanquish above the Vantage in terms of best demands when we're ranking Bond cars.
Well, no, because the Vanquish just is a better car in off screen and on screen, so
Well, whatever.
Anyway, Alfred's number one, Michael Caine. Number two, Jeremy Irons. Number three, Alan Napier. Number four, Andy Serkis. Number five, Michael Gough. Number six, the random Alfred in Joker. Obviously, by the way, the Batmobile, the '89 one is staying in at number one, of course, because why else would they make such a big deal of it in The Flash? But yes, Alfred's. I suppose Jeremy Irons stays at second, right?
Yeah.
It was nice to see him. He's not in it for much, but it's just refreshing.
It's just nice,
Yep. Now, the theme song. So we have currently number one, the Batman '89 theme song, which we do kind of hear in this film a couple of times.
Yeah.
Well, but bits from the soundtrack anyway. Number two, the theme song from The Batman, which is dun 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 dun, which is amazing. Yeah, number three is Batfleck's Batman theme song, which unfortunately we didn't hear in this.
Yeah.
But it's very cool and it's worth mentioning. Number four is the Dark Knight Rises sort of trilogy Hans Zimmer one, which is also no, it's not Hans Zimmer. It's a different guy.
Hans Zimmer did do the music for those, didn't he? So.
Sorry.
Hans Zimmer did the music for the trilogy, though.
Actually, he didn't. He did the music for the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, but I think he collaborated on Batman Begins with.
Oh yeah.
James Newton Howard. So.
Yeah, it's like a really strange.
Yeah. Kind of... and anyway, number five is the '66 Batman theme, which is like the classic one, and then number six, Henry.
Oh.
Yeah, you remember?
No. This is something else. Yeah, they should have. You know what? What would have made me like jump out of a window would have been if they had that playing while he popped up while George Clooney.
They brought back Robin or something, man. Yeah.
Yeah. He's Robin played by a 40-year-old man or something
Yeah, like Aaron Paul or something.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be
Okay. Now we might have to cut this, but the Sigma moment. Now, I was really consciously trying to look for a Sigma moment in The Flash. I just couldn't think of one. Could you?
No, if I'm being honest. It's because
we have to do it. It's like the trademark thing on this show. And I don't have the rankings in front of me, but by memory, I know for a fact we put Ben Affleck, I Bought the Bank at number one.
Yeah.
Number two was Christian Bale's, I Own This Restaurant.
I'm buying this hotel, yeah.
Yeah, I'm buying this hotel, that's right. And then number three was I'm Rich. Number four was, again, Christian Bale going, I own this hotel, we'll put these tables together with Harvey Dent. And then below that was Jack Nicholson going, I didn't ask. And then you had lots of other random ones.
Yeah, Viola Davis as well, saying.
Oh, Viola Davis, of course.
So,
Arnold as well,
leverage or something.
Saying he only has heart for his bride or something. There are some rubbish ones as well. But there was one from the Batman. From Batman Forever, where he goes women or something like that as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's just women.
That was the bottom one. Okay, so now we remember what the bottom one was. We can put whatever we get from the Flash below that. What was the one? Yeah. So what can we nominate?
I seriously don't know. This is not funny.
Maybe just George Clooney. It's quite
No, well, what
Sigma,
about like
shameless.
no? What about saying I have no friends like from Ezra Miller? Just like that loner
That's not
sort of
Sigma,
like.
is it?
Yeah.
I mean, uh, I'm struggling, man. Does Michael Keaton do anything?
Really don't know. I don't think so.
Nah. I kind of almost want to give it to Supergirl, actually. She's the most Sigma character in this, I
But what does
think.
she? What does she say though?
Uh,
She has very few lines.
yeah. I don't really know, man. Not really. Doesn't really do anything. I mean, she ends up being killed every
A
time
lot.
anyway. So we have to come up with something though. Um, maybe I don't know.
What about General Zod saying the infant did not survive? Just like I don't care. I just killed this kid
General
for
Zod like
reasons.
declaring war, like no matter what the guy was going to say is
Yeah,
pretty good. I
literally.
think we can go with that. Well, it's more chud, but still, we'll give it
Yeah,
to
so
General
we're
Zod.
taking this as a declaration of war, for no
Yeah.
reason.
All right, and then let's put that at. Hang on, let me just get this right. Because there are 14 Sigma moments, so we can put this 13th above women.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that'll
suppose.
do. All right, and then finally we're going to rank the film.
Yeah, this will be interesting.
So, if you're a fan of Heath Ledger and The Dark Knight, then prepare to be horrified because our rankings are number 1, The Batman; number 2, The Dark Knight; number 3, The Dark Knight Rises; number 4, Batman, 1989; number 5, Batman Begins; number 6, Joker; number 7, Zack Snyder's Justice League; number 8, Batman vs Superman, um, Ultimate Edition, Snyder Cut, whatever.
Yeah.
Number 9, Batman Returns. Number 10, Batman the Movie, the 1966 one. And number 11, Suicide Squad. Number 12, Batman Forever. And number 13, Batman and Robin.
Right, well, I could
So,
come out the gate with probably a quite controversial ranking. I'd probably put this above Zack Snyder's Justice League.
yeah, I was kind of looking in that area as
Because
well. So,
all of the ones below that I don't really want to watch again. Like
well, you know what? We have to be fair now because I think The Flash, with all of these, right? I've seen almost all of these movies more than once. So,
this
I
also has a
can talk
massive
about their rewatch value. I mean, some of them have no rewatch value, of course. I mean, I was forced to watch Suicide Squad twice, for example. But the Flash
Yeah, we don't really know.
obviously will have rewatch value because I want to rewatch it. So yeah, it is going that out. So definitely below the Joker. That's sort of the dotted line, I think. And then there's another one below Batman Returns, I
Yeah.
suppose. So it's going somewhere. 7th is Zack Snyder's Justice League. 8 is Batman vs Superman. 9 is Batman Returns. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know,
like
man.
Batman
Like
Returns.
Batman Returns was really good. That was the one with Danny DeVito as the Penguin, right?
Yeah, but the Batman Returns I've only really rewatched just to watch Christopher Walken.
Yeah, he's in it as well, man. Come on, like,
Yeah, he just pushed his employee out of a window. To be fair, like
yeah, that was really good, man. Yeah, he was in our Sigma ranking as well, wasn't he?
yeah, but there's other than
Actually,
that,
he's probably the only guy that's been in two separate franchises has like risen to our Sigma quotes because he's got one in Batman Returns and he's also got one in A View to a Kill as Max Zorin. So, um,
yeah, I don't really want to rewatch Batman Returns unless I'm doing a marathon or something.
so what about Batman vs Superman? I kind
Man,
of think Batman Returns should go above Batman
I
vs
said,
Superman. Actually, looking at it, can we do that? Can we
huh?
retcon this?
You want to put what do you want to do about Batman vs
Batman
Superman?
Returns above Batman v Superman.
Yeah, I would go with that probably.
Yeah, because
Because
Batman v Superman was like trash, man. I mean, it wasn't trash, but it had like, I mean, it was great because of
it's a
Batman.
3 hour film based
It
around a
had
5 minute.
Jesse Eisenberg as,
Yeah, yeah, with
as
this
Lex
stupid
Luthor, just
theme,
awful.
man. Look,
Yeah,
like
with his orange urine.
it's like a 3 hour film with a director's cut based around a 5 minute premise of a fight which isn't that satisfying
Yeah,
and ends with Superman being killed like in the
yeah,
second film because they want to catch up with Marvel for some reason. Like, and no one cared. You know.
yeah. Okay, so
Oh, and you also
Batman
had
Returns.
Granny's, jar of piss or whatever from
Yeah, of course.
the 5,000 takes at looking at that jar before it explodes.
Yeah, oh God. All right, so okay, well, we know the Flash is going above that. Zack Snyder's Justice League, Batman Returns, The Flash. Oh, it's hard to say. So you're pretty confident you put it above both of them?
Yeah, because the Justice League, I just, it's not like a whole thing of, I don't like long films, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
just
but that was taking a piss. That was
it's
4 hours
a
long.
4 hour film, and the story's not even that interesting. Like,
Yeah.
because like I don't know, Zack Snyder fans talk about it as if it's like God's gift to humanity as in film form, but it's just like it's extremely generic.
But what I will say about Zack Snyder's Justice League, just to give it a bit of defense, is I mean the nightmare scene. That's the only thing I really love
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. But that's like,
The nightmare scene's like so good, man.
but
I
it's
think what the
only like,
Flash does best, it takes the best out of the Snyderverse and kind of builds on that really.
yeah, it really, that's the thing. It
So,
delivers on all like the kind of all the trailer moments.
yeah,
They're all
yeah,
there, and they're not for 5 seconds. That's like the best part of it. It's like unashamed. This is the thing. It's unashamedly like, objectively speaking, I guess you could say it's not like, it's not an amazingly written film. It is carried. It has a lot of stuff carrying it in terms of like, it doesn't have to write the plot of Batman of Man of Steel. You've already had Batman '89. It's like riding off of a lot. It's dining off the success of a lot of other films.
yeah, yeah. It
But
does benefit from that.
it's like, it's like when we rank some of the Bond films, which most people probably hate, like Octopussy, for example. It's just like something which you unashamedly will just watch, like just because it's so much fun.
That's true. I think you made a good case there. I think the Flash kind of also makes it worth having seen all those films as well.
Yeah, true.
You know, um,
Yeah, it somehow makes it somehow gives you like some solace in terms of having watched um wasted 2 hours of my life watching Batman and Robin.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
like
All
it's
right.
I never thought a film would give me something like that.
Yeah, that is high praise indeed. So, all right, I'm sold. The Flash is going in at seventh, so below Joker and above Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I'm not going to apologise for that. And if you do have any qualms with any of our rankings, then you're very welcome to go back and listen to our lengthy justifications of our opinions, and then you can, abuse us in whatever foul, depraved way you choose online on your platform of choice. So yeah.
Yeah, afterwards I'll be conducting an exclusive interview with Ezra Miller. I'm here with him. He's in the next room, if you can see on YouTube. So
Yeah.
uh,
Um,
definitely stay tuned for that because that's totally happening.
that's it. Yes. So, yeah, I left the cinema I was very impressed and and again, obviously, strongly recommend it. Go and
Yeah,
watch it, enjoy it. It's not like, I mean,
it's
listen,
not like what Tom Cruise said because he like there's like the
yeah,
story of him coming out the cinema saying, "Yeah, it's the best superhero film I've
yeah,
ever
and he
seen." I'm
called
like, yeah,
them to
sure, mate.
congratulate. Yeah, obviously, Tom Cruise, whatever, doing a bit of PR. But I mean, I have to preface all of this by saying we've given this film a lot of praise. I still gave it a 7 out of 10 on IMDb because I
I'd give
feel
it 6 and
I,
a half, maybe.
I couldn't give it an 8 and I couldn't give it a 6. I think 7 is just right. Well, maybe a little, maybe if it was into decimals, maybe 7.1 or 2, but I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyable film. I will watch it again. And yeah, it's definitely surpassed all of my expectations. So
Yeah, well, which were rock bomb, which helped. This
exactly.
also, bear in mind, this also has a slight helping that we'd seen this in the cinema, which always elevates any film most of the time, apart from
Um,
super Bond films, but still.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that's true. And I think what's good about this film is because they kind of treat James Gunn anyway. I mean, we haven't even talked about him, but I think they kind of treat this film and one other, I think Aquaman. I can't remember which one it is, but like as a
Uh-huh.
soft reboot for the DCEU, which I'm not really very invested in at all anymore. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a nice way to close the door on, Ben Affleck. Well, probably Ezra Miller. Unfortunately, Henry Cavill hasn't had really a great send off. Wonder Woman, it kind of just says goodbye to all those people, closes off the Snyderverse, and now we can get
Yeah.
on with fully investing in the Batman 2 or I mean, I don't know when our next episode will be, but the next Batman film will probably be the Batman
At
2,
2 years' time,
or
or 3 years' time,
it
even.
might pop up in the Joker sequel.
Yeah, you're right. There's that too.
So yeah, it's something to look forward to.
Mhm.
So until then, it's been a pleasure, Henry. I've really enjoyed this. So everyone, thanks for listening, and check out other videos. And thanks for joining. So we'll be back next week. We'll be back on a Bond schedule with Skyfall. Actually, no, Quantum of Solace is going to come out after this, and then Skyfall. So yes, so look out for them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.